Your spiritual awakening wasn't late. It was delayed. And it wasn't just by life. It was by someone much closer. Someone you trusted. Someone who shaped how you saw yourself. Before you ever knew who you truly were. This isn't about blame. It's about truth. And sometimes truth feels heavy before it sets you free. You may have thought you were just a late bloomer. But the truth is your awakening tried to start many times before. And each time it got interrupted, not by cruelty, but by control wrapped in care. See, some mothers don't realize they're passing on fear, not love. They repeat patterns they never healed. They suppress your questions not because you're wrong, but because your questions threaten the false safety they built their identity on. And when you started waking up, when you began questioning the script, you weren't just breaking out of your own limits. You were breaking a cycle, and cycles don't break quietly. Let's go deep. Here are 6 subtle soul-shaping signs your mother delayed your spiritual awakening without even realizing it. By the end of this, you'll see your past clearly, and your path forward powerfully. Let's begin. She taught you to prioritize peace over truth. You were trained to avoid conflict, even when the conflict was inside you. Your mother might have told you to be nice, don't make things difficult, or keep the peace. But what she really meant was, don't disrupt the illusion that everything's fine, that questioning things is disrespectful, that silence is safety. But here's the cost. You learned to silence your inner voice just to keep external harmony. And so when your soul started to stir, when deeper truths tried to rise, you hesitated because you were taught that truth comes with punishment, that honesty breaks relationships, that inner clarity equals outer chaos. You didn't suppress your awakening out of ignorance. You suppressed it out of loyalty, to her comfort, to her image, to her way of living. But real peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of alignment. You're not here to be polite. You're here to be awake. And your awakening began the moment you stopped apologizing for your truth. She projected her fears onto your potential. Every time you dreamt big, she reminded you to be careful. Every time you tried something new, she worried. Every time you stepped outside her version of safety, she called it risky. You weren't actually scared of your spiritual awakening. You absorbed her fear of change. You internalized her need for control. It wasn't always dramatic. It was often disguised as concern. Are you sure that's the right path? Maybe just stick with what you know. You're overthinking again. But here's the truth. You weren't overthinking. You were awakening. And it scared her. Because if you changed, it might reflect all the ways she didn't. When your awareness began to rise, her comfort zone felt threatened. And instead of cheering your growth, she tightened the leash. Not to hurt you, but to keep her world from shifting. Your job isn't to shrink to protect her stability. Your job is to expand, to embody what she never allowed herself to become. She needed you to stay small so she could feel strong. This one's tough, but you felt it. The invisible pressure to stay the child, even when you became the adult. Every time you gained clarity, confidence, or consciousness, she subtly pulled you back. With guilt, with comparisons, with stories that made you feel selfish for evolving. Because your awakening redefined the power dynamic. And power shifts can feel like threats, especially when someone's identity depends on being needed. You weren't just her child. You were her emotional anchor, her validation, her reflection. So when you started waking up, setting boundaries, and thinking independently, it unsettled her. She may have felt abandoned, but you were never leaving her. You were just returning to yourself. And sometimes your light will trigger others' shadows, but that's not your burden to carry. It's their mirror to face. She used guilt as a spiritual handcuff. Guilt is a powerful tool, especially when it's wrapped in motherhood. And chances are, she knew exactly how to use it. You've changed. You think you're better than everyone. You don't call like you used to. You used to be so sweet. It wasn't just commentary. It was control. Your awakening meant emotional distance, not because you stopped caring, but because you started seeing. You saw the unhealthy dynamics. You saw the manipulation disguised as love. You saw the guilt trips for what they were, a way to keep you tethered to her version of you. But guilt is not a spiritual compass. Just because someone feels bad doesn't mean you did something wrong. She may not have known how deeply her guilt-shaming delayed your growth, but now you know, and knowing is your freedom. She made obedience a measure of worth. You learned early. Being good meant being agreeable. Being smart meant staying in line. Being loved meant not challenging her views. So you stopped asking questions. You stopped exploring. You stopped following your curiosity, because curiosity led to disapproval. That's how your spiritual path got delayed, not by force but by praise. You were rewarded for fitting into her expectations, but punished emotionally for stepping out of them. This created a dangerous inner belief. If I grow, I'll lose love. And so, your awakening didn't feel like freedom. It felt like betrayal. Not because it was wrong, but because you were conditioned to equate obedience with safety. But true awakening isn't about rebelling. It's about releasing the need to be approved. You don't owe anyone your stagnation just to keep the peace. She dismissed your inner world as imagination. You felt things others didn't. You questioned what others accepted. You sensed something deeper, something beyond the surface. But every time you shared it, she brushed it off. That's silly. You think too much. You're just sensitive. And so you learned to second-guess your intuition. You doubted your spiritual sensitivity. You hid your depth to avoid ridicule. That's how your awakening got delayed. Not because you weren't ready, but because the one person who should have nurtured your inner world dismissed it. But here's what's real. Sensitivity isn't weakness, it's awareness. Curiosity isn't rebellion, it's the start of awakening. And imagination isn't fantasy, it's the doorway to deeper consciousness. She may have taught you to ignore your inner world, but your awakening began the day you trusted it again. You didn't delay your awakening. You survived the environment that delayed it for you. And now you see. You see how generational fears get passed down as parenting. You see how emotional control gets disguised as care. You see how deeply your identity was shaped before you even had a chance to choose it. But here's the transformation. Awareness breaks the cycle. You're no longer reacting, you're remembering. You're no longer shrinking, you're becoming. And your spiritual awakening? It didn't come late. It came exactly when you were strong enough to handle the truth, and gentle enough to heal from it. If you felt seen in this video, if something clicked deep inside you, then this is your sign to keep going, to trust your path, to forgive without forgetting, to grow without guilt. Thank you for watching till the end. If this message moved something in you, like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more content like this. It helps us reach more people who are silently healing, just like you. You're not alone. You're evolving. And that changes everything.